welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, so let's talk about consistency. Or, the lack of it sometimes. We've all been there, right? That Monday morning energy, you map out your entire life, get the budget app, sign up for the gym, and then, Tuesday afternoon hits, maybe Wednesday morning, and poof, that grand plan just fizzles out. And you're left wondering, again, why is this so impossibly hard? We're all hunting for that secret key, aren't we? That thing that unlocks real lasting change.
Yeah, that hunt for consistency, not just that quick burst of motivation, is exactly what led us into today's source material. We did a deep dive into Peter Hollins' A Science of Self-Discipline, a psychological guide. And it's important to say up front, this isn't really your typical rah-rah motivation book. No, it digs into the mechanics. It's heavy on behavioral science, psychology, and crucially, neuroscience.
Right, so that really sets the stage for our deep dive today. We're trying to get past that old idea that discipline means punishment or depriving yourself constantly. We want to break down the science of why we lose focus and maybe figure out how to make discipline feel less like pulling teeth and more like a smart, maybe even automatic habit. This should hopefully be a good shortcut for you, the listener, to understanding how control actually works.
Exactly. And the core idea Hollins puts forward is pretty fundamental. It reframes the whole thing. He defines self-discipline as the strategic control of your actions and, importantly, your emotions to serve your long-term goals. It's about being goal-directed, not just doing things because you feel obligated.
Okay, strategic control, that already sounds different.
It's a subtle shift, yeah, but it's huge. It frames discipline as being about, intelligence and strategy, not just suffering through things.
Okay, let's really unpack those core mechanics then. Because I think for a long time, many of us, myself included, treated a lack of discipline like, a character flaw.
Yeah.
But the sources hit you right away with something quite different. Discipline is basically biology in action, not magic.
It really is. It's like this biological negotiation happening inside your head all the time.
Yeah.
You've got these two main systems kind of battling it out for control. Think of it like a tug of war. So on one side, there's the prefrontal cortex, the PFC.
Okay, the PFC, the smart part.
Yeah, you could call it the rational brain. You're a long-term CFO, maybe. It handles the planning, the complex thinking, impulse control, basically everything that serves your future self.
Makes sense. So what's pulling on the other end of that rope?
That's the limbic system. That's the impulsive kid in your brain, the instant gratification seeker. It reacts immediately to, dopamine hits, cravings, distractions. It's the part yelling, eat the cookie, NOW, or, ooh, shiny video, click it.
Okay, the internal teenager versus the CFO. That makes a lot of sense, actually. But, if we're constantly fighting this internal teenager, how do we ever win? Is there hope? Can the CFO actually gain the upper hand?
Absolutely. And this is where the neuroscience gets really interesting. It's not a fixed fight. The PFC is trainable. The mechanism Hollins describes, based on the science, suggests that through things like consistent routines, focused effort, maybe even mindfulness practices, you can physically strengthen the connections in the PFC.
Strengthen it, actually make it stronger.
Yeah, functionally stronger. And that translates directly into better executive control over those limbic impulses. It really is like building a muscle.
Wow. Okay, so if the biology is there, the next step has to be managing that impulsive reaction, right? It sounds less like needing more pep talks and more like needing emotional stability. What's the key skill we need to actually control that biology?
It really boils down to mastering emotion before action. Hollins makes a strong case that motivation fails us because it depends entirely on feeling good, feeling inspired. Discipline, though, is different. It's more like a procedural commitment. That quote nails it. Discipline is doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it.
It sort of takes your mood out of the equation.
Okay. But doesn't that sound kind of draining? Are we just supposed to feel crummy while doing good things all the time?
Not necessarily crummy, no. It just means you're relying on your strategy, your system, not waiting for the right mood to strike. And what's fascinating is how this ties directly into that classic idea of delayed gratification. The marshmallow test.
The kids in the marshmallows. Wait for the second one. Exactly. And the kids who could wait often showed better outcomes later. What the book emphasizes is that this skill handling the impulse for now versus later is just as critical for adults. It predicts success in Well, everything. Finance, fitness, careers, relationships, choosing to study instead of going out, investing instead of splurging.
Yeah.
That's delayed gratification in action.
And yet everything around us seems built for instant gratification, instant messages, instant delivery, instant everything. It feels like society is almost engineering us away from that skill.
Precisely. Which is why we have to get strategic ourselves. If the biology is the hardware, then this next part, section 2, is like the critical software update. Because if the world is basically designed to tempt our impulsive limbic system, then just relying on raw willpower, that feels like a losing game.
Okay, yeah, this is where it gets really practical, I think. Let's talk about environmental engineering. What's the big idea there? How important is controlling our surroundings?
This might be one of the most powerful, actionable things for you listening. The core lesson is self-discipline is just so much easier when your environment supports your goals. It's about controlling your surroundings so you don't have to rely on that finite willpower all day long fighting temptation. Discipline, in this sense, is almost about designing your life to minimize the number of hard decisions you need to make each day.
I like that, minimizing decisions.
Yeah.
So, like if I want to save money, it's easier to just set up an automatic transfer when I get paid than to stare at my balance every day and actively decide not to spend that extra bit.
Exactly right. Perfect example. That's financial environmental engineering. The book gives some really practical tips. First, the obvious but crucial one. Keep distractions out of sight. Physically remove them. If you need to focus on writing, the phone isn't just silenced. It's like in another room, charging, behind a door. Create friction for the bad habits.
Right, physical barriers. Make it harder to do the wrong thing. What else? Scheduling.
Yes, scheduling dedicated focus blocks. Treat them like important meetings you can't miss. Protect that time. And the third piece is automating habits using cues and triggers. Hollins talks about how setting up really specific, reliable cues takes the thinking out of it. If cue X happens, say finishing dinner, then habit Y automatically follows, loading the dishwasher. It stops being a decision based on mood and becomes just what you do, driven by the environment, by the time of day.
That shift feels huge, moving from constant resistance to just, eliminating the battle where possible. That's game-changing. But let's be real, sometimes you can't fully control the environment, right? Like, I'm trying to eat healthy, but there's always going to be cake in the office kitchen eventually. So when the environment kind of fails us, we have to face temptation, that's when we need that raw engine of willpower. How does Hollins talk about willpower training and mental toughness?
He frames willpower very much like a finite resource, almost like physical energy. That's a key concept. It gets depleted throughout the day. There's this idea called ego depletion.
Ego depletion, okay.
Yeah. But the good news is, like a muscle, it can be strengthened through consistent effort, small, focused effort. And importantly, it also needs rest. You can't just be on 24/7.
Okay, if it gets tired, how do you train it without burning out? Does focusing on like tiny little wins actually help with the big goals? Or is it just a distraction?
That's a really good question. And no, the tiny wins won't magically solve a huge problem overnight. You're right about that. But what the source material suggests is that these small acts of daily control do something else. They reinforce your belief in your own ability to be disciplined. Every time you succeed at a micro-discipline, getting up when the alarm rings the first time, making the bed, finishing that one annoying task you've been putting off, you send a little signal back to your PFC, a little feedback loop that says, see, I can follow through, I am in charge.
Ah, okay. So it's less about the immediate result of making the bed and more about the consistent proof to yourself that you can exert control when you decide to.
Precisely. You're building self-efficacy, confidence in your ability to execute. This actually reduces decision fatigue later when you face something bigger because you've already started building this identity of someone who, does what they set out to do.
Identity. That links perfectly into what feels like the most sustainable form of discipline. It's not just external stuff or even engineering your space, but something totally internal. Identity and self-image.
Yes, this is really where lasting change happens. The source really emphasizes this. The most robust discipline isn't just about doing disciplined things. It's about being a disciplined person. Hollins puts it very clearly. When you see yourself as a disciplined person, your actions follow naturally.
Yeah.
You stop having that internal argument about whether or not to go to the gym, for instance, because, a fit, disciplined person just goes. It's part of who they are.
That's a profound shift. It's not about forcing yourself anymore, which is just exhausting. It's more like training your mind to cooperate with what you actually want long term. The book uses this nice analogy. Like a scientist training an experiment. You're observing yourself, noting what works, what doesn't, and gently guiding things toward the goal. So how do we actually apply that scientist mindset? What are the tools?
Right. The scientist needs tools, not just theory. And the book does provide some very specific practical techniques. The first one is maybe obvious, but people often skip it. Habit tracking. Just making your progress visible. It reinforces that identity shift. Seeing that chain of X's on the calendar makes you not want to break it. It builds momentum.
Okay, tracking makes sense.
Yeah.
And you mentioned visualization earlier, but with a twist. What's the mental game there?
Yeah, it's called mental contrast visualization, or MCV. So typical visualization is just picturing the great outcome, right? How awesome you'll feel when you hit the goal.
Right. Beach body, big bank account.
Exactly. MCV adds a crucial second step. You also visualize the specific obstacles that are likely to get in your way.
Okay, so if my goal is to run a 5K, I picture crossing the finish line, feeling great, but then I also picture like the pouring rain or my legs hurting or just really not wanting to get out of bed.
Yes. And critically, you then visualize your plan for overcoming that specific obstacle. This helps you form what psychologists call implementation intentions. Basically, if X happens, then I will do Y plan. If it's raining, then I will immediately grab my waterproof jacket. By mentally rehearsing your response to the temptation or the difficulty, you strip away its power when it actually shows up. The decision is already made.
Wow, okay. That shifts the decision point from the moment of weakness to the moment of planning. That feels really powerful. What about when we mess up, though? Because let's face it, failure happens. Nobody's perfect.
Absolutely. And Hollins is really clear on this. Discipline does not mean perfection. The final key tool here is reframing failures as feedback. They're just data points. They're not indictments of your character. If you missed a workout or ate the cake, okay, analyze why. What broke down in the system? Was the environment wrong? Was the cue missing? Fix the system, learn from it, and get right back on track tomorrow. Don't let one slip-up cascade into giving up entirely.
Okay, so pulling this all together, what's the big takeaway for you, the listener, right now? If we had to boil the whole book down to one core comparison, it feels like it's this. Discipline beats motivation. Every time.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Motivation is great. It's that spark, right? Gets you excited, gets you started. But it's fickle. It depends on mood, on sleep, on coffee. Discipline, though, that's the engine. That's the system. It's the strategic commitment that keeps you moving forward, sometimes almost automatically, even when that initial spark is long gone. You use strategy so you don't have to constantly feel enthusiastic.
Okay, let's do a quick final review then. The key things we really want you to walk away with today.
All right. First, self-discipline isn't something you're born with. It's built. It's a skill, and it grows with daily practice, especially those small wins. Second, focus on controlling your environment. Make it easy to do the right thing. Engineer your surroundings rather than constantly battling temptation head-on. Third, master your emotions first. Recognize that a calm, strategic mind leads to consistent action. Don't let mood dictate behavior. And finally, change your internal dialogue. Talk to yourself like a helpful coach, analyzing the process, looking for improvements in the system, not like a harsh critic judging your worth after every little mistake. That internal identity piece is key for the long haul.
Yeah, that focus on cooperation, not coercion, really feels like the heart of it. Training versus forcing. So here's the final thought to maybe mull over this week, building on that idea of identity and internal coaching. Self-discipline is really about training your mind to cooperate with your long-term goals, not just forcing it with willpower. What identity shift might you need to make? How can you start seeing yourself as someone who is capable and consistent so that those disciplined actions start to feel less like effort and more just, natural, inevitable even? That's definitely something to think about. And that's all for this deep dive into the science of self-discipline.